So storytelling has always been something that I'm super passionate about, hence the journalism background. Going into ABC, have dabbled in production, but always kind of worked in social media in some capacity. And then 3.5 years ago, coming to Advocate Healthcare to help lead their social media team. So a little look at what Advocate Aurora Health looks like today. This is post-merger, so our merge happened about 1.5 years ago. So Advocate Healthcare in Illinois merged with Aurora Healthcare in Wisconsin, became Advocate Aurora Health. So we see around 3 million unique patients, 70,000 team members strong. Sorry guys. I thought I had this all set up. There we go. And 28 hospitals, looking at almost 30 now. So right now, our current social media presence, we have about 500,000 followers in all of our accounts combined. And then year to date, we have 40 million impressions, about 9,500 leads, and 8 million engagements on social media. So let's talk about what we're competing with. I don't know about you guys, but my social media timeline looks a lot like this. Puppies, babies, you know, the occasional political post. I like to dabble with this stuff though. So these are 2 of my favorite memes out there. You might be asking yourself, why do I need a content strategy? So when we merged, we found out really quickly that we were doing things very different in the way that we were talking to our audience, in the storytelling, the way that we were communicating with them. So we decided we need to get on the same page. We need to have one cohesive strategy across all of our accounts. It might be shocking to know that there are 250 billion photos that have been uploaded to Facebook since the beginning of time. Of Facebook. That's a lot. That equates to 350 million photos per day, and 75% of brands are paying to promote their posts. So hence the lot of content out there. So what should your content strategy do for social media? It should ensure that your content is sparking emotion, driving conversions, inspiring action. You should be able to identify what is and what isn't working well so that you can optimize it, and then it should help you sustain a consistent quality content. So throughout the process, kind of speeding ahead at the end of this, these are the kind of 7 keys to a successful content strategy, what we found has worked best for us. So identifying our goals and focus areas, establishing our KPIs, so how are we going to measure it, learning what content resonates with our unique audience, creating our guidelines, leveraging UGC. I actually made that its own piece because I think using UGC and user-generated content is so important in your strategy, merchandising and extending, and then always assessing and evolving. So first, to identify our goals and focus areas, we asked ourselves these 2 questions. So what was our brand's purpose? You know, Advocate Aurora Health finally came up with the brand's purpose, which was to help people live well. So from there, we were like, okay, does our current content reflect that? Are we doing the best that we can do, you know, to help people live well on social media? Maybe we're doing a good job, but we could probably do better. And then we looked at, you know, our organizational goals, our public affairs and marketing department goals, and then our team goals. And, you know, how were our content strategy, how was that going to ladder up to all of those goals? So what we did is we defined these focus areas. So with the new merger, you know, the brand awareness was on top of mind. Just putting the Advocate Aurora Health name out there and putting it in consumers' minds, they can understand the brand linkage between Advocate Healthcare and Advocate Aurora Health, Aurora Healthcare and Advocate Aurora Health. You know, always supporting our priority service lines, our partnerships, and showing the value of those is really important to us, and not just our sports partners, the Bulls, the Bears, the Cubs, but also, you know, our Advocate Clinic at Walgreens, Bank of America Chicago Marathon, so showing how we leverage those partnerships and how it impacts our patients. Blog and educational content, so Advocate Aurora Health has a brand journalism website called Healthy News, ran by a fabulous team. They have about 350,000 subscribers currently. So we have always consistent content coming from that. We have about, I would say, 5 to 6 news stories a day, so that's a lot. And not all of that content, we can't put that all on Facebook every single day. So, you know, knowing what's going to resonate with people, what types of stories to choose was going to be really important. And then storytelling. which I think should be the core of your content strategy, right? You have to have great stories, and you have to tell those stories in a really thoughtful and engaging way. And so I'll kind of go into that a little bit later. But next, we needed to establish our KPIs, so how we were going to measure everything. So we were lucky in that both of our teams were previously pre-merger already, measuring with these metrics. So we already had data on the impressions, engagements, and leads from the last year. So we're like, that's a great way, to assess how is this content strategy doing in the next year or so. And along with this too, it was really important for us to make sure that we're absolutely tracking everything. So even everyday stories and content, tracking all of our healthy news. Where are people coming from? What stories are they responding to? Making sure that we're tracking every single thing that we're doing in unique ways. So if we have the same content on Instagram story versus Twitter, we know and can attribute it to where it's coming from. So 3, it was learning what content resonates with our audience. So what we did is we ran an audit. So, and what I suggest is, what kind of research and stuff do you have at your fingertips? For us, a lot of it was just using native insights through Facebook, but we also have a great consumer insights team that was able to provide us with some more in-depth research. So then what we looked at too was, is our online audience matching what our brand target audience is? So do our followers look like the people that we're trying to reach on social media? And then for your target audience, you should know what platforms they are using and what types of behaviors they have on all those different platforms. Because how, a stay-at-home mom who's 26 is using Instagram, they might be using Facebook and Twitter in different ways. So knowing kind of those trends and how they're behaving. The next question was, what types of content are people engaging with the most on our page? So what we did is we ran an audit from the previous 2 years and pulled the top 10 best performing pieces of content and looked into what kind of aspects made that content top performers. So scientists have this saying, neurons that fire together wire together. And so this kind of goes back to that storytelling piece, because when someone's reading through a story, more of their brain that's engaged at one time, the chances that they're going to remember the content that they just read, it increases exponentially. So there was a study done where scientists brought in a group of people into a movie theater, and they attached monitors, had kind of helmets on to monitor their brain activity. And they were there to watch the new James Bond film. And so people were watching, and as the movie kind of progressed and he's scaling the wall, their palms are getting sweaty, their heart rate's increasing, and what they found is that people's brains were sending signals and firing at the same time and releasing the chemical called oxytocin, which it's technically like the love chemical. But what it does is it tells your brain to empathize on a chemical level. It increases positive feelings of trust. And so what they learned is that great storytelling and great visuals can, actually generate empathy at a chemical level and bring us together. And that kind of segues into one of my favorite quotes, which is, if you don't feel it, you won't remember it. And I think that is just at the core. If your audience is not going to be able to connect with the content that you're sharing, it's essentially useless. And so then what we did is we created some guidelines. We all know that content is king. So we decided what channels were we going to use, what was going to have a paid strategy, and what were we just going to share organically. And so for us, we really focus on Facebook and Instagram. Those are our two big ones, just based on where our target audience is using the most. YouTube as well, and then Twitter we use more for connecting with our brand partnerships, pitching media, and then kind of that educational health content piece, so our healthy news blog. And then also we're on LinkedIn and Pinterest as well, and we have an associate ambassador program called Hootsuite Amplify. Now with LinkedIn, we do run a paid strategy. Some of that is more kind of lies in our recruitment area, but we do some paid there, it's not part of our overall everyday strategy. So next what we had to decide was we have all of these pages out there. Not only do we have our legacy brand pages, so Advocate Healthcare, Aurora Healthcare, Advocate Children's Hospital, but we had to create an entirely new page for the new brand, and we're like, well, what are we going to share on there? And then underneath all of those brand pages, we also have all of our local hospital site pages, so 28 hospital pages that we have, and we decided, what we're going to do is put them in a parent-child model, so throw all of the location pages underneath the brand pages and just put content out at the brand level. So going back to that audit that we ran, looking at all the top performing pieces of content that we had from the last 2 years or so on each of our accounts, we started to see some common themes and parallels, which allowed us to create this content checklist. And so we saw that there was a trend that, at least 3 of these boxes were checked essentially when we had a really great piece of content. So it either inspired action or emotion, fulfilled one of our strategic initiatives, so our priority service lines, our growth areas. It was something that was trending, so not only just like breaking news or trending challenges or stuff, but also health awareness like days and months. And then also targeting and budget was super important. And actually, we're probably going to be altering this checklist because we pretty much need paid behind everything now since organic is dead. But with this too, with targeting and budget, just because you have money, it doesn't mean it's going to make bad content good. So, I think making sure that it checks all of the other boxes, or at least 3 of the other boxes, is really important for us. And then the healthy living piece, so that's that patient-centric health content, so our healthy news blog, particularly things that we're doing in the community or government relations, and then team member focus. But little caveat of that is just making sure that that's always, consumer focused. So how are we going to tell our team member stories in an engaging way, and why would our, patients care about that? So we actually have a campaign called I Am Advocate Aurora, which is a great example of how team member focused content can be successful and patient centric. So we came up with that great, content guidelines, but we're like, how the heck are we going to enforce it? Are people actually going to listen to it? And so what we did is we reached out to our digital team and we had them create this online intake form. So basically it has all of the fields that we need in order to create a piece of content. So whether it be like a Facebook event, a full-fledged campaign, all of those options are in there, and it requires them to fill it out, including the budget portion, which was really important. But you can see that we have underneath, it shows like content must meet 3 of these criteria to be considered for social media. So it was just kind of a constant reminder for people. And what we saw is that even, sometimes the content and how they're pitching it or how they're writing it or how they're presenting it, it may not check those boxes, but you can actually, reformat the way that you're telling the story in a more engaging way so that it does kind of meet our criteria. And so what happens is when they hit submit, it gets populated into our Trello board, which is our project management kind of platform that we're using. If you guys don't know what Trello is, it's a great free platform that you can use. And it looks, so you have these streams, and what happens is when it submits it, it creates it into a card for us. And so we're able to allocate it to different team members. It's a great visual tool, especially for, from an aesthetic point of view for social media, because the cards can all have photos on them. So we actually run a whole stream for Instagram content. So in a linear way, you can see from an aesthetic perspective, how everything's gonna look on our feed before we even post it. So that's just been really helpful. So a couple examples of compelling stories that we pulled when we ran our audit. The first one here is about a singing nurse who's worked at Advocate Lutheran General Hospital in Park Ridge for over 20 years. So we knew that this was going to be a great story from the start. Not only does it help promote the hashtag The Advocate Nurse, which was a big priority for us right then, but you obviously can see how this could be a touching and emotional story. And then 2, we had kind of that team member piece there. In the middle, here's a story from Bromen down in Bloomington Normal. So this was super cute. This was right when the hashtag then and now was very big and trendy. You saw a lot of
companies and organizations jumping on kind of that trending train,
Wendy's, all of them were taking part in it. So we got this sent to us, and so on the left, there's a nurse holding a baby, and on the right, it's the same nurse, the same hospital, with the now grown baby and her baby that she helped deliver. So that was just really touching, and that checked a lot of our boxes too. Team member featured, focusing on our nurses. It was trending, and also that has that kind of like emotional kind of family piece to it. And then on the right, this is a great story that we had. You're probably not going to have a wedding in your hospital every day, but this was a unique situation where we actually found this through UGC. I don't know how this didn't get in front of us ahead of time, but we all know kind of how that happens when we have a lot of hospital sites, and we're not always aware of things as they're happening. But we saw a mom post a picture of kind of the setup of where they were going to host the wedding at the hospital, and she was like, I can't believe Advocate Sherman Hospital could throw this together in the nth hour. And so what happened is the father was unfortunately not going to be discharged from our hospital before the wedding, and so she actually called off her wedding and moved the wedding to the hospital. So we had the the gift shop, food and nutrition, housekeeping, all come together to throw this beautiful wedding for them. And so while this didn't check actually a lot of the boxes on our content list, you can pretty much throw the list out at the door when you have a story like this. So like I said, when it comes to just great storytelling, definitely just go with it. I'm sure you've all heard about the phrase, above the fold. And so that's true for Facebook posts too. As you can see, you have that kind of short space before you have to click see more, and so that's really where you need to be able to engage your audience, connect with them in that space. So another thing is we needed to create a separate strategy for each platform. So how we kind of broke it out is we thought, how are we going to utilize each channel? How many times are we going to post each day or week? What were our goals going to be, I guess? Because previously we could barely have maybe 3 to 4 pieces of Instagram content a week, and we wanted to get to the point where we were sharing at least once a day. What photo and video standards will you uphold? Where and how will you use hashtags? I don't know why this was a really big argument for us, something so small, but we needed to have consistency in how we were sharing content, and so that the user experience on all of our platforms across all the different brands, it was a similar experience. How much are you going to spend to boost each post? So while this kind of varies depending on the content, depending on what service line and all of that, it was helpful for us to just break it down from our budget, like what we had each day and what we were going to kind of save away for Facebook, what we were going to save away for Instagram. But what we needed to think about is how we were going to monitor, respond, and engage with people on all of these platforms. So were we going to try to like all of the comments that we get? Do we want to have a custom response for each person that comments on our post? So what's our bandwidth for our team? And then also to make sure to include a Facebook and Instagram story strategy as its own strategy, because there are over 500,000 people on Instagram stories each day. And what we saw doing some kind of testing before we rolled out with the full-blown content strategy this year was that we were seeing a lot of hard conversions being made through Instagram stories. So we have these health risk assessments that we promote on social media through email campaigns, where you go take a quiz online, and it assesses your risk for a number of things. So breast cancer, diabetes, sleep apnea, heart disease, and we were seeing a lot of completions on the quiz from Instagram stories, which was great. So here's kind of a sample of what we send out to all of our stakeholders and partners to uphold video and photo guidelines just kind of across the board, with the highlights being, making sure that we're featuring a person in each of our photographs to have that kind of human connection piece. Avoiding other brands, making sure that we have consent is a huge one, making sure subjects are facing the camera and are engaged. I can't tell you how many photos we get from events where it's the backs of people's heads, not super engaging. Free of any filters, GIFs, stickers, text overlays. Don't send us pre-made collages or any of that, just the raw original photos. So this is what we kind of package up and send out via email to anyone who is potentially covering events for us or contributing content. So here's an example of what our Instagram embarrassingly looked like before. So a lot of kind of weird graphics, a lot of text, some probably made graphics from maybe me, some dark photos of poor Clark the Cub, and then you can see after, the human connection that we were talking about, showing the people of our organization, telling the story of our patients. So I could probably go on to talk about video and why that is a crucial piece to your strategy forever, just because of my background and passion in video, but I'll give you the short little spiel. So 1/3 of online activity is spent watching video, and videos don't need to be highly produced. Our social team, we have a great video team that produces some of the more, marketing, campaign-related content, but for the everyday type of stuff, that's our team creating it. So whether it's at an event, whether we're visiting the hospital for Clark the Cub visit or patients, we're always taking video, taking B-roll, sending that to our media team, or we're pitching it ourselves. And we use just iPhones, iMovie, and Adobe Rush most of the time. We do have better programs like Premiere or Final Cut, but these really get the job done, and since people aren't really watching video with sound anyway, we don't have to worry about that too much. And if the story is compelling enough and if the visuals are there, you don't even really need captions. I mean, that's kind of what the description of the video is for. If Clark the Cub is coming in to visit, they're not gonna care. People know, who Clark the Cub is. They can see that it's a mascot, so we don't worry about doing captions on everything. And authenticity is key. So a lot of the videos that we get to are found through user-generated content. Maybe when we weren't there, a mom's taking a video in the hospital room as their care team is coming in to have them, ring the gong after their last chemo celebration. We can't be there for all of it, and so those videos really are the ones that have gone the most viral on our accounts, are the ones that were kind of just taken in the moment, not pre-planned too much. And I highly suggest creating a separate platform-specific strategy for your video content as well. And so with our content strategy, we had to keep in mind all of Facebook's ad policies because they've gotten kind of ridiculous. And especially being in healthcare now, in the United States, in order to run an ad about health, you have to actually have authorization and verify that you're a US citizen. You have to send in your driver's license. They have to verify where you live. It's kind of crazy. But we ran into a lot of issues, particularly with our blog content, because they love the clickbaity headlines, and that just wasn't working for Facebook. So what we had to do is we had to go in and claim our domain, not only our domain for our website, but the Healthy News website as well, so that we had the freedom and ability to change up our headlines and the thumbnails, because recently Facebook took away that privilege and that right just to try to cut down on fake news. So those are just a small fraction of the prohibited content that we run into on a daily basis. Even if you're running an ad against tobacco, but it has a picture of a Juul or electronic cigarette in it, it's going to flag it and not allow you to even share it. So the next step was for us to create a content calendar. So this was another struggle, because on the Illinois side, we kind of just flew by the seat of our pants, maybe, so to speak. We were already using Hootsuite to schedule out all of our content, and there was a calendar in there. So we were like, that's enough for us. We need it to be fluid. We were getting new content every day. Like I said, there are new healthy news stories every day. So it was really hard for us to plan everything out to a T, where on the Wisconsin side of things, they were a lot more structured and had stuff planned out really far in advance, knew exactly what they were going to be sharing. And so what we found is kind of a happy medium. So we still utilize Hootsuite today, but also utilize Trello, so that's a free online project management system to help be our content calendar, because it's so easy to move things around and just click and drag cards. Another thing that we had to think about is that with more content and more quality content, we're going to be getting more comments, questions, complaints. So do we have the infrastructure to, come to a resolution and have these patient complaints be responded to? And so 5, leverage UGC and partners. So letting the stories come to you. So what we found is that by monitoring all of our location pages, so all of our hospital locations on Instagram, we saw just an abundance of great content, and it was like an untapped resource. So all of these photos were actually curated from other people's accounts. So these were unsolicited. People just wanted to share their experience on social media. And so we actively look online for these types of patient stories. So developing a UGC strategy was really important for us this year. So like I said, Instagram location tags will become your best friend. We also use and look at check-ins on Facebook as well. And we had to work out a process with our legal department for consent. So that's a really important piece, whether you're using like an online form through DocuSign, you have to send them the form, they have to fax it into you. If you're using a hashtag, there's a lot of stuff out there, but looping them in was really important. And then for us, it was important too for us to just keep a record of all of the content that we are using from other people. And so we do that also in Trello. And it's an easy way to infuse some authenticity into your content. I think it helps break up some of the more like mundane stuff, the really like marketing service line heavy stuff, and it just looks, fresh. I think that people, when they look and they're on your page and they see this content, they see the authenticity in it, and it doesn't seem forced. And we like to call them kind of like our Disney moments. So another kind of way to get stories is to actively solicit for them. So we do this quite frequently, especially on our children's hospital page, because we just get such a great response. But we, will ask for people to share the stories about their heroes, survivors in their lives. So we get stories that way and work with them through social media, reach out to them through private messenger, and then get them offline to get kind of more of the information, get consent. We found a lot of media stories this way too. And so here's kind of a unique way in how we shared stories that we found from our doctors. So Doctor's Day was coming up. We posted on both Advocate Healthcare and Advocate Aurora Health's accounts, asking people to, do you love your doctor? Do you love your physician? Share your story with us. And so what we found is that we got a really great response, and we were able to actually print them off, have our operations team who works regionally kind of go in and surprise the doctors. And this was kind of in the form of Jimmy Kimmel's mean tweets, but had a very positive twist on it. So we actually had them, reading the kind comments aloud and captured that on video. The other thing too is to make sure that, our operations team was aware of the stuff that we were looking for, because I feel like a lot of the time we're telling them no. So we wanted to give them ways that they could say yes to stakeholders and service line leaders at their sites. So the most common ways that we work with them are by featuring our team members in the I Am Advocate Aurora campaign. So that's a great way to give some kind of local love to, maybe a new physician that started at a practice or at a hospital. We also do a lot of social media takeovers, so we've done them with a variety of, service line leaders, with doctors, nurses, even Santa Claus during the holidays. And how we execute these is we actually get all of the content ahead of time and then do it as a look live, so that our team can really, ensure that it looks like our brand. It has the same look and feel as all of our other takeovers. And then Instagram stories. So like I said, 500,000 daily users. So just reminding all of our partners that vertical video, vertical photos are very important. And like I said, we've seen a ton of really great conversions just from Instagram stories alone. So we are looking to kind of ramp up our strategy there. We also create a lot of infographics from Healthy News Stories. So if we have a story on, 4 tips to eat healthier in the morning, then we might create an infographic in Canva for Instagram stories to kind of click through and then swipe up for more information. And then snackable video. Video is a huge piece, so we always encourage anyone who's at an event to take video for us. We're always taking video post-events, and like I said, compiling all of that B-roll into a Google Drive and then giving that to our media team so that they can pitch it out. So merchandising and extending. So our team does our own social pitching, and that was a big piece of our content strategy this year. We have a great media team that pitches to traditional media, but they're not reaching out to the BuzzFeeds, the Now This, you know, the little things. And so we decided to kind of take that on, and we saw a lot of great success from it, and it was really great to forge relationships with those kind of social media giants, and, you know, be able to supply them with consistent content. And so along with merchandising and extending, there's so many kind of tricks out there. We have this saying in our department that if you can't use something at least 3 times, then why are you doing it? So one of those ways to kind of merchandise and extend are when we do our takeovers. It takes a lot of work to do these takeovers. I mean, the physicians put in a lot of time to go and get these photos taken. They supply us really with all of the talking points because we want it to be kind of in their voice and from their perspective. And so, you know, instead of just running it on Instagram, we actually package up the stories as a video to then export and share on Facebook and LinkedIn. And what we saw from or what we heard from our recruitment team is that they actually got a lot of emails talking about how, you know, I saw this takeover of a NICU nurse on LinkedIn. I'm really interested in, you know, what you guys might have to offer. So it was a great recruitment tool as well, which was really exciting. And then always assessing and evolving. So this is super important, and this is going to be something that we're going to have to continue to do. Although we've seen a lot of success since last year, you can see with our leads, impressions, and engagements, we've grown quite a lot, and this is just at the end of Q3. So we're really happy about, you know, how our content is helping grow in all of these different areas, but making sure that we're looking at how the tracking is being done, optimizing that, making sure that we can attribute all the leads and to see what is working, what isn't working. And so that's kind of it. Did anyone have any questions for me on anything I talked about? Yeah?
I think Hootsuite is where you can connect, like when you do Facebook. Does it automatically go to Instagram, or can you pick and choose? Because, like, I think our Facebook looks similar to yours in the past, where we have a lot of information, things going on, and some of that you might not want on Instagram. Can you pick and choose what you post? Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so she's asking with Hootsuite, if you can pick and choose what platform your content is being pushed out on, because something that you're pushing out on Facebook might not be right for Instagram. So yes, absolutely. Within Hootsuite, you're able to connect all of your platforms and channels individually, so you can select where you're sharing things. And there is probably no case where we're sharing the same exact content with the same caption on all of our platforms. We're always kind of optimizing how we're telling the story, especially with character counts and Twitter and all of that. There's constraints there. So, and you know, you need things to be shorter and more to the point. Where on Facebook, we found that, you know, some of the longer form content is actually doing really well. You know, and keeping up to with the current algorithms with Facebook and learning, you know, how your ad is being spent. So we found that, you know, telling the full patient story and boosting that was getting a lot more engagements than when we were trying to link them to the story on our blog. Because Facebook doesn't want you to leave Facebook. So what we saw is that it just wasn't getting the same reach, and our ad money and dollars wasn't being spent as well. So we've kind of tailored our strategy around that to post more of the stories natively on social media and then kind of bury the link instead of, you know, putting it front and center. Any other questions? Yeah.
When you're using the user-generated content, and we're talking about getting consent, what is your turnaround? Because if you have to track down people...
Yes. So embarrassingly, I'll admit, we do not even have an online consent form yet. It has been a struggle, and it's definitely not top of mind for our legal department with everything else going on post-merger. So we do have to send them a form that they have to either print out, fax to us, scan to us. But what we found is that the more content that we've been sharing that's user-generated, the more willing people kind of step ahead, and we actually have people reaching out to us. How can I share my story? So that helps, you know, when they're excited to and that they're, you know, looking forward for you to share their story. But the turnaround time, it can be anywhere from a day to a couple weeks, or they just completely drop off and we never hear from them again. But, you know, constantly looking and always having your feelers out there and reaching out to as many people as possible is really important. And two, with UGC, what we found is that, you know, we were able to find some more of the nano and micro influencers in our local markets and facilitate relationships with them. So, you know, if we know that they have an ongoing health condition, or they're routinely kind of coming in for appointments. Some of them actually now send content to us or make sure to tag us all the time when they're posting stuff, so we have consistent content from them. And a lot of them, being locally, they nano meaning like a couple thousand followers, but their followers are in the community, so it's much more worth it to work with someone like that than someone who has a huge online audience that may be diluted in your service areas, or nowadays you can buy followers, which they may come from anywhere. So sometimes more of like the homegrown local nano influencers are even better. Yeah.
You mentioned that about the 28 hospitals that offer like individual pages, but do those still exist? And like, how did those hospitals feel about now the larger brand completely controlling their social presence?
Yeah. So on the Illinois side, we were fortunate in that we had kind of already tackled a lot of that. We had already reined in and had ownership over all of our sites in Illinois. On the Wisconsin side, they still had some of the site pages being managed by someone at the site. And we also had a recent acquisition where someone else was managing that as well. And so right now, all the site pages sit under kind of the parent-child model of our brand pages. So essentially, when we push content out from the brand page, it's visible on the site page. So it appears that there's always kind of constant content being published, but we really only manage them from a reputation standpoint. So making sure that we can change and update contact information is super important. Responding to messages, reviews, and recommendations and stuff. So that's really our strategy for the site pages, because really the content at the site pages that we're sharing should be so engaging that it makes sense for us to share on the brand page anyway. So that's how we kind of look at it. But yeah, the conversations have been tough. We have to come to them, and now we finally are having our brand guidelines being published for Advocate Aurora Health, which we made sure to put a line in there about, you cannot create your own social media accounts, because we have a lot of those, from residents to, even like youth leadership teams. There's so many out there, and it's going to be impossible for us to find and acquire them all, but we just try to take it kind of one step at a time. And the hospital pages are obviously the biggest priority from a risk standpoint, and that's kind of where our argument always starts, is that, from a risk standpoint, you don't have the infrastructure to, properly respond to these, or they don't have the training, or they don't know when to contact risk and legal when someone's complaining. Or we've had people reach out and respond to complaints where people are threatening to, go to the news or the media, and so they don't have the proper training to respond to those, appropriately, I guess. And we've had, unfortunately, a few, situations that we can use as leverage to be like, hey, this is really why we need to take it over. We'll make sure that you can, and then you can still share your content with us. So it's important that they know that they can always submit content to us, and we'll make a recommendation about how we'll be able to share it for them. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Your Healthy News site, I just was curious, you were talking about how much content you guys are producing, like every day.
It's a lot.
Yeah. How many, are those your own people? How many people do you have producing content?
Yeah, so it's all our team. So Healthy News was originally birthed in Illinois, so from the Advocate side, and it was basically our public affairs and marketing team were all kind of tasked with, and it was our goal for the year to hit this many, stories. And so it was a good way for our site PR teams, which are now our operations teams, to be able to kind of promote their doctors and service lines that maybe weren't getting enough love, or that we couldn't, share on social media or do a full-blown campaign for. So it was a great way for them to have like an easy win and be able to promote them as a subject matter expert. And so now it's been rolled out to Wisconsin. We now have looped in their resources. And so, yeah, we have about 5 to 6 news stories every single weekday. So that's a lot. It is a lot. So we, for us, it wasn't really the struggle of having not enough content, but almost too much. and knowing kind of what pieces were going to work best, because we can have a story that's doing really well on Healthy News about how to check for hemorrhoids, but how many people are going to engage with that on social media and share it to all their family and friends? Not a lot of people, So while we may get a lot of clicks to the web page and fulfill that goal, we're not fulfilling our goal of drumming up engagement, impressions, and all of that. So it was just kind of finding a happy medium of helping promote the website, but also still getting the engaging social articles out there too. And it's great for our team because we can kind of do some articles that are more on social media side and integrating that into health. So that's been kind of fun too. So yeah.
In the world of social, we're constantly receiving content from service line directors or whoever who are out doing things, they're taking pictures, but sometimes the content we're receiving is not, not everything can be a priority for us to push out on social, but to that service line, that's important in the moment. So how do you navigate having some of those conversations with service line leadership or directors who are saying, hey, we want this to be pushed out on social, where you're thinking, in the grand scheme of what we're trying to do, this isn't really good.
Yeah, and that's hard. We get that a lot, and that's a large part of our job is making those recommendations and telling them why things aren't working. And it's really a case-by-case scenario. We're lucky in that our operations team on the public affairs team is kind of our first line of defense. So we tell them that every single piece of content that's being submitted to us really needs to go through them and be filtered first. So a lot of it was educating them on what types of content does work and maybe trying to get in front of it too. So giving them those examples of ways that we can partner with them that we will say yes to. When it meets all of this criteria, when the photos are really good, typically we can use it in some kind of capacity, and if the photos aren't great, maybe we're gonna throw it on Twitter, if we have time. But it's definitely case by case, and those conversations are always hard, but I found that, when you give them examples of things that are working, sending them links to stuff, we have a lot of doctors that are active on social and that want to participate. So it's just letting them know, what's going to work, what's not. The other day, I had a doctor send me for a takeover, super graphic images from surgery. And, it's just not something that us as a brand, we share on social media. And so trying to kind of have that conversation with him is well, you may be seeing this every day and you're desensitized to it, and it is really cool. It's a really great teaching tool. It's not for everyone. And when we put it out there on Instagram stories, it could be a 10-year-old now, looking through Instagram stories and stumbling upon it, and that's not really what we want them to see. And so I think that they, for the most part, are pretty understanding, when you take the time to kind of explain it to them. So yeah, we try to find our first line of defense, educate them so that they're not letting all of this content get to our team, because we do, with 28, almost 30 hospitals now, we have one being built, we have so much stuff that gets sent our way. So, and if we can't share it, we just can't share it. Maybe they can share it in their newsletter. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Do you do a lot of event promotion or posting events on Facebook?
Yeah, so that's kind of been a newer guideline that we're working on right now, because we have so many events. We, from galas to community events to birthing classes, and kind of our standpoint that we're taking now is if it doesn't support our priority service lines and it wasn't kind of built into our recommendation, or if we weren't knowledgeable of it ahead of time, we're just not going to make an event page for it. We're not going to put in the time and effort, because I think what people don't really understand and what we had to educate them on is it's not just creating the event page and hoping it does well, right? We're targeting people, we're putting money behind it, we're having to monitor the ads. We run all of our paid social in-house, so that's a lot for us to take on. So all of our campaigns we're already having to analyze, and to throw in 10 to 15 events per week that we potentially have to be optimizing, it was just too much. And kind of going back to that Healthy News hemorrhoid story, some of these events, get your hernia checked, those are not things that people are going to be saying that they're going to on Facebook. It's going to notify all their friends and family. We all are pretty kind of educated in the fact that we know, any kind of action that we take online is pretty much public to your friends and family, and they can view it. And so you know, for that we had a lot of people that showed up from social, but we didn't have a lot of engagement. And so sometimes we'll run, you know, dark ads instead that are targeted for certain events, but a lot of the times we just kind of reason with them and we're like, send us photos afterwards. We'll do post promotion, or, you know, to let them know, like if it's an open house, let us know, you know, send us the photos, give us a little bite of information, and we'll promote it after the fact so that people will know that you're open in the community and keep you top of mind for immediate care or such on. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
You had mentioned that you don't actually usually just link right to a blog. I missed that. So
yeah, so it depends.
You repurpose the content then? Or?
Essentially, in optimizing it in our own way. But honestly, with the blog, they've kind of found that patient stories don't do the best on there, where they do the best for us. So normally now when they get pitched stories, they just kind of send them our way. But they do occasionally will, you know, do like blogs in the voice, I guess, of the patient, kind of telling their journey or such. And so what we found, though, is we did some testing. So we ran the same story that was natively posted and then the same story that was a blog post, where it was just kind of a little blurb and then, you know, linking to the full story. We put the same amount of dollars behind it. We did this quite a few times and just saw that we had way more engagement when we told more of the story natively and uploaded the photos natively. So there was no like clickable thumbnail, but we did link to the blog like way deep down in the post and in the caption. So we've just seen, and it's constant testing and just kind of learning about the algorithm, kind of things like that, you know, making sure that we're always staying abreast of new information and news, and, you know, there's a lot of great resources out there for when, you know, people testing kind of algorithms and stuff. So we've just been listening and doing our own testing, and that's just what we've kind of found. Yeah.
Just curious, considering it's a very politically volatile kind of couple of years for healthcare,
yeah,
advocacy and what we're doing, since I work at IHA, are you planning to utilize more social media for advocacy and your staffing ratios, like other kind of things that are traditionally not part of your core, but also to try to get the word out to the legislators, state, federal, serious price transparency, those things that are pressing to operational money for the hospitals?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I don't know that I have a total answer for that, but we do get a lot of content from our government relations team, who are the experts in that, and we do have, you know, on the Illinois side, historically have a nurse advocacy day each year, which we do like full-blown coverage for. We make sure that we are tagging legislators and all of those, you know, when applicable. So I feel like we do have, and I think that there's different platforms that we choose to share those on, depending on kind of the subject matter and nature for it. But to my knowledge, I don't know, we actually have a brand new structure to our government relations team post-merger. And so now we have, a lot of our team is moving to DC to be able to do more kind of advocacy work and be there on the daily basis. So I think that will definitely help with, you know, getting more content and being able to share more about that too. Any other questions?
I had a question about careers. We had tried to make a post about different jobs available, and Facebook kind of blocked it. And said, no, you need to use their career link for these things. So if, you know, do you use Facebook for career posts, or do you just avoid that, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, so historically, our team on the Illinois side, we were helping push out paid ads for recruitment. Now, post-merger, we actually have someone who has a dotted line between us and recruitment that does more of the paid for recruiting. I know that she does utilize the jobs tab within Facebook. She also does a lot with LinkedIn. Though on the Wisconsin side, they previously had separate channels just to promote careers. which was something that we had to argue against because we thought that it should be coming from the brand pages. And that was just part of our strategy, is that when people visited these pages, we wanted them to see all the other aspects of what makes like our brand great and tells our full story. And you know, the separate pages was kind of siloing that a little bit. And so, you know, making sure that she was pushing out stuff that was dark and targeted on the brand pages was key. I don't know if, I haven't heard if you can't push dark ads for recruiting. I do know that there's restrictions on promoting jobs to like certain age groups because you can't discriminate against, you know, gender or age when you're posting kind of career stuff. So I don't know if that was why, or if they're just really trying to force you into using their.
Yeah, I think we had listed several of the job openings on this little post that we made, and I think they saw that there were several job openings, and they said no, that they would like us to use that career link. And I thought, well, that's going to take another person to manage that.
It does.
Really doesn't have time to post.
No.
Keep that all updated.
Oh, so yours was just a general link to like your website for all the careers in general?
No, actually, it's on Facebook, and there's a link as far as careers and how you. It looks like it's a whole, you know, addition to Facebook where you can keep jobs posted on there when they open and close. And I mean, like I said, it looked like it's very encompassing.
It is, and that's why it was so great for us to have someone else be able to take that on, because it was just too much for us. And really, she's the subject matter expert for that in recruiting strategy as a whole. So I think it made sense for her to do it. But yeah, sorry, I can't answer your question because we don't. I know that she does utilize that job tab, so I'm not sure what it would look like if we were trying to just do it natively or as an ad.
Promote one, like say, hey, we're in need of housekeepers. That went through. But I found when we had a list, it was like, no. So it was,
yeah, maybe look at your targeting too and see if you're, you know, you have to be really broad just so that you're not, you know, discriminating against any certain ages, backgrounds, gender, anything like that. So that may have been why they flagged it, but yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you guys so much.